It starts almost always with trust. A child or grandchild comes to you, sometimes with a worried voice, sometimes with too much confidence, and says, "Can I borrow some money?" The reasons vary: rent, school fees, car repair, a rough month, and the tone is almost always the same: urgent, expectant, and wrapped in the invisible bond that ties families together. And so you say yes, because you love them, because you've always helped, because they say, "I'll pay you later." At first, you feel at peace with the decision. You tell yourself you're doing what any caring mother or grandmother would do. You don't ask too many questions, don't set any terms. There's a silent belief that love guarantees return, not just of money, but of respect. But time passes. No update, no return. Not even a mention of the loan. You begin to wonder, did they forget? Should I ask? Will it seem rude if I bring it up? You're caught in an emotional limbo. You didn't just lend money, you gave it wrapped in affection and trust. And now you feel a strange emptiness, as if that gesture simply disappeared into the air. Marina, 68, shared her experience in a community circle. Her daughter had asked for $1,500 to get caught up after maternity leave. Marina transferred immediately, no questions asked. "We'll sort it out later, Mom," her daughter said. That was 2 years ago. Since then, Marina's tried to mention gently, only to be met with phrases like, "You know how hard it is with the kids," or "Let's not talk about money, it spoils things." Marina stopped asking. But inside, the disappointment hasn't stopped growing. When love becomes a silent debt. The first thing to understand is this: what's bothering you isn't just the unpaid money. It's the unspoken agreement that was quietly broken. It's the feeling that your kindness was taken for granted and that your limits were ignored. This is especially painful in relationships with children or grandchildren, where affection runs deep and expectations even deeper. As women, many of us were raised to put family first, to keep things smooth, to avoid conflict. So when this discomfort appears, we often turn it inward. We blame ourselves. I didn't ask for anything in writing. Maybe they're struggling more than I thought. I should just let it go. But here is where Carl Jung offers insight. Jung believed that what we repress does not disappear, it returns in disguised forms: frustration, resentment, sadness, even illness. When you suppress your voice in order to keep the peace, you often lose both the peace and your own center. What to do instead? Let's be practical. The next time someone asks you for money, even someone you love deeply, consider this sequence. Pause before answering. You are not a bad person for not saying yes immediately. You have every right to think, to ask questions, and to protect your stability. Ask questions with clarity, not guilt. How much exactly do you need? What will the money be used for? When do you expect to return it? These aren't signs of distrust, they're signs of maturity. When someone truly intends to repay, they won't be offended by these questions. Propose a clear agreement, even verbal. "I can help, but let's agree on a date for repayment." That helps both of us stay comfortable. Would it make sense to start returning it in small monthly parts? By doing this, you transform the help into a shared responsibility, not a one-sided sacrifice. Keep a simple written note. Whether it's a message on your phone, a small calendar note, or a confirmation by text, document the agreement. Not to take it to court, but to remind both of you that this was real, serious, and based on respect. What to avoid? Don't say yes out of pressure or guilt. If something inside you hesitates, honor that feeling. Take time to reflect before committing. Don't lend money you cannot afford to lose. It's a tough rule, but a fair one. If the return never comes, you shouldn't fall into hardship, financial or emotional. Don't assume family equals responsibility-free help. Emotional ties do not replace mutual respect. Love should deepen accountability, not dissolve it. Don't stay silent forever. The longer the silence, the harder the conversation becomes. It's okay to revisit the subject, and you don't have to apologize for doing so. When they push back. Sometimes when you try to talk about money, the other person gets defensive. They might say, "So now you're charging me," or "You know I'm doing my best." This is where calm honesty is your strongest tool. Here are some phrases that express your boundaries with respect. "This isn't about money, it's about the agreement we made." "I want our relationship to include honesty, even in uncomfortable topics." "I trust you, and I need to feel that my trust was respected." If they react poorly, it reveals a truth: the problem was never just money. It was the way they handled your trust. Strengthening your future self. As hard as it may be, These experiences are opportunities to redefine how you give. They teach you to help without disappearing, to love without losing your voice, and to protect your peace while staying open-hearted. Jung believed the second half of life was not about doing more, but about becoming more whole. For many women, this means letting go of the idea that love means limitless giving, and embracing the idea that true love includes limits. One day, a friend asked Marina, "Would you lend to her again?" Marina paused and said, "Maybe. But next time we'll talk first. No more silent giving. I want to feel respected, not just generous." That shift from silent giver to conscious supporter is what this chapter is about. Waiting becomes its own kind of burden. It's not loud, not obvious, but it's there day after day. You remember the moment clearly. Your son or your granddaughter needed money. You gave it with love, with trust. And they said the words that felt like a promise, "I'll pay you later." But now that later has no date, no voice, no movement. You wait quietly, hoping they'll remember, that they'll bring it up. You tell yourself, it's not a big amount, or they probably forgot. Still, something inside you doesn't forget. This is where the emotional weight begins to grow. Not because you're greedy or unforgiving, but because you're human. You gave with open hands. And now, you wait with an unsettled heart. You feel unsure. Should I ask again? Am I being petty? What if it upsets them? This uncertainty, repeated long enough, turns into tension, not only between you and the other person, but inside yourself. You're torn between your values, generosity and fairness, love and self-respect. Carl Jung once wrote that we suffer more often in imagination than in reality, especially when we avoid confronting a truth. Waiting in silence creates a kind of inner fantasy. Maybe they forgot, maybe they don't care, maybe I'm not important anymore. The longer the silence, the louder those thoughts become. So let's bring this out of the silence and into action. What you can do. Acknowledge the reality of your discomfort. It's okay to feel disappointed or even hurt. Denying your feelings only makes them stronger. Write them down if it helps. Say to yourself, "I feel tension because a promise wasn't honored." That clarity alone brings relief. Choose the right time to speak. Don't bring up money in the middle of a family gathering or during an emotionally charged moment. Choose a calm setting. If it's by phone, call when you have privacy and time. If face-to-face, ask for a few quiet minutes. Be direct but calm. Avoid vague comments like, about that thing. Instead, use simple and respectful words. "I wanted to talk about the money I lent you a while back. I know things have been busy, but I'd like us to revisit that agreement. I'm wondering when you might be able to begin returning it." You're not demanding. You're inviting accountability. Offer flexible but clear options. Help them see a path, not a wall. You can say, "Even a small amount each month would show me you haven't forgotten. Would it help if we agreed on a date to review it together?" This shows you're open but not passive. Set a personal deadline for your own peace. Tell yourself, "If I don't receive a response or plan by a set date, I will choose what to do next, whether it's letting go, adjusting the relationship, or no longer lending in the future." This isn't about punishing. It's about protecting your emotional well-being. What to avoid. Don't use sarcasm or indirect comments. Saying things like, "Must be nice to forget debts," or "I guess I'm just your wallet now," will likely create distance, not dialogue. Don't involve others as messengers. Avoid asking another relative to bring it up. This only spreads discomfort and can damage more relationships. Don't stay silent out of fear. If the relationship can't handle a respectful conversation, then the issue is deeper than money. Don't tell yourself it's not important, if it is. Minimizing your feelings only builds resentment. It's not about the amount, it's about the meaning. When they avoid the topic. If you've brought it up calmly, and the other person still avoids or dismisses the conversation, that's a response in itself. It may be painful, but it's clear. You then have a choice. Let it go, but learn from it. "I now know not to lend again," without agreement. Or keep the issue open, but limit other areas of support until the trust is rebuilt. You don't need to argue. Just shift your energy and focus back to yourself. Rosa, 70, waited over a year after lending her son money for a move. He never mentioned it again. When she asked, he said, "Oh, I thought it wasn't a big deal for you." That comment hurt more than the money. Rosa didn't argue. She said, "It was a big deal to me, not because of the amount, but because of the silence." From that day on, she decided she would no longer lend. She would help in other ways, but never financially, without clear agreement. This wasn't punishment. It was clarity, a Jungian perspective. Jung believed that clarity of values brings inner harmony. When your outer actions, like lending, are not aligned with your inner truth, your sense of fairness, respect, and dignity, tension arises. That's the source of the unrest. Bringing light to the situation, instead of hiding it in politeness or fear, is the path back to peace. Jung also spoke of confrontation with the shadow, the part of ourselves and others we often don't want to see. Waiting endlessly in silence is sometimes a way to avoid seeing that someone you love might not be acting with care. But once you confront that truth, you can act with strength and compassion, not denial. Final guidance. Your love has always been strong, but love without boundaries leads to imbalance. The moment you start honoring your own limits, your relationships begin to shift, sometimes painfully, but often toward greater respect. Remember, you are not wrong to expect follow-through. You are not cold for bringing up what matters to you. You are not selfish for needing closure. You are a woman who gave from a heart, and now seeks peace with honesty. Let that be the new chapter you write. Love doesn't mean saying yes to everything. It doesn't mean agreeing to what feels wrong, or staying silent when your heart is unsettled. But for many mothers and grandmothers, that line between helping and enabling becomes blurry, especially when the ones asking are your own children or grandchildren. You raised them. You saw their first steps, comforted their tears, celebrated their victories. That bond is unlike any other. And because of that, it can be the hardest place to draw a boundary. But what happens when your love becomes a shelter for irresponsibility? When your help, instead of supporting growth, protects someone from facing the consequences of their own choices. That's when something needs to shift, not in your heart, but in your actions. Clara, 72, had always been close to her grandson. When he lost his job, she offered to help. First with groceries, then with bills, then with a loan to help him get back on track. He was grateful at first. But as months passed, Clara noticed a pattern. He wasn't applying for jobs seriously. He was relying on her support as a cushion, not a bridge. When she tried to talk about it, he said, "Don't you trust me?" Clara felt torn. "I do trust you," she said, "but I'm starting to feel like I'm helping you stay stuck." That's the key difference. Support helps someone move forward. Enabling helps them stay where they are. Carl Jung believed that true growth happens when we face our own shadow, the parts of ourselves we'd rather avoid. For some, it's irresponsibility, avoidance, or entitlement. And when a parent constantly shields a child from those shadows, they delay the child's growth and burden themselves in the process. So how do you love someone deeply and still say no more? What you can do: recognize the pattern. Ask yourself, am I helping in a way that encourages responsibility? Or am I making it easier for them to avoid it? Talk about values, not just actions. Explain why you're changing your response. I care about your future, and I don't want to be part of what holds you back. I want to support you, but not at the cost of your independence or my peace. Offer support with structure. If you still want to help, do so with boundaries. I can help one last time, but only if we write out how and when it will be returned. If I help again, it will be with the agreement that you take specific steps, like applying for work or managing your budget. Be clear about what you won't continue doing. I'm not going to keep lending money without any plan. From now on, I'm focusing on my own needs first, and that includes financial stability. Hold your boundary without guilt. If they react with anger, blame, or emotional manipulation, stay steady. You might say, "I love you, but I won't be talked to that way." This conversation is hard because it matters, but I'm not changing my mind. What to avoid? Don't confuse love with rescue. You are not responsible for fixing what others have broken, even when you love them. Don't reward repeated irresponsibility. If someone continues to break agreements, don't keep giving them more chances without change. Don't act from fear of rejection. Your relationship may be tested, but love based on conditions or silence is not love, it's compliance. Don't let your past mistakes define your present. Many women say, "I feel like I'm making up for things I got wrong when they were young." But this isn't the same child. You're dealing with an adult now, and it's not your job to live forever in apology. When they try to guilt you, you may hear things like, "You helped them, why not me? If you loved me, you'd trust me. You always said family comes first." In these moments, remember, real love includes truth. Real family includes responsibility. And trust is earned, not demanded. One way to respond is, "Because I love you, I need to be honest with you. Family does come first, and I'm family too." My help needs to have meaning, not just repetition. Jung spoke of individuation, the process of becoming whole by integrating the truth of who we are. That includes stepping out of old roles, the rescuer, the silent supporter, the one who holds everything. You can still love fiercely, but from a grounded, whole place. Real love has limits. Let's be clear, love doesn't end when you say no. In fact, sometimes love begins there. When you stop enabling, you give someone a gift far greater than money, the chance to grow up, to take ownership, to become someone they can respect, and that you can be proud of. Marina, from earlier, finally said no to her daughter when another request for money came. I said I love you too much to keep helping in this way. I'm still here, but this is where I draw the line. Her daughter didn't speak to her for a few weeks. Then one day she called and said, I get it. I didn't at first, but now I do. That conversation was the beginning of a new chapter. You're allowed to change. The version of you who always said yes had her reasons. She did her best. But now you're wiser, more grounded. You've learned, sometimes through pain, that helping without limits leads to burnout, not closeness. This is your time to help differently. With care, with clarity, with consciousness. Because you are still the mother, the grandmother, but you're also a woman. A person, a soul with her own journey. Let your love be strong. And let your limits be sacred. Asking for your money back shouldn't be a fight. But for many women, especially when it involves a child or grandchild, the very idea of bringing it up feels like walking into a storm. You fear the tone will shift, that the person will take it personally, become defensive, or distance themselves. And so you delay. You stay silent, even when your heart is restless. But here's the truth. Asking for something that is rightfully yours is not rude. It's responsible. It's a form of integrity, both with yourself and with the relationship. Carl Jung often spoke of the tension between authenticity and adaptation. We adapt to avoid discomfort, especially in family. But when we adapt too much, we lose ourselves. The goal isn't to avoid tension, it's to approach it with awareness and courage. When to bring it up. The best moment to discuss a financial return is when you feel emotionally grounded, not angry, not hurt, not impulsive. This gives you the clarity and tone you need to speak without blame. Avoid high-stress times, holidays, illness, or during unrelated conflicts. What to say? You don't need dramatic words. You need clarity and calm. Here are phrases that express your intent clearly and respectfully. I've been meaning to talk to you about the loan I gave you. I'd like to revisit the agreement we made when I helped you financially. Can we talk about a plan for returning that amount? I want us to be clear and at peace. If you never made an agreement at the time, it's still okay to speak. When I lent you that money, I assumed we'd talk about repayment later. I'd like to do that now. How to say it? Tone matters. A calm, grounded tone opens space for conversation. Even if the other person becomes defensive, your tone signals maturity, and that this isn't about punishment, but about respect. Use I statements rather than you accusations. I've been feeling uncomfortable not knowing where things stand. I need clarity so I can plan my finances. I want to feel that this is a relationship where we can talk honestly. How to respond if they react poorly. If the person becomes irritated or tries to deflect, stay anchored. I'm not attacking you. I'm just asking for what we agreed. I understand if you're not in a position to pay in full, but we need to talk about what is possible. I'm open to a plan, but silence or avoidance isn't okay with me anymore. And if they try to guilt you, I'm asking for responsibility, not perfection. This isn't about money alone, it's about honoring each other. When they agree, but still delay. Sometimes people agree in the moment, but then postpone again. If that happens, follow up. We agreed on a plan. Can we check in about it? I know it's uncomfortable, but I need us to stay true to our word. If delays continue, you may need to say, I'm feeling that the agreement isn't being honored. If this continues, I'll have to reconsider how we relate around money going forward. What to avoid? Avoid sarcasm and emotional baiting. Comments like, I guess I'm your bank now, or some people just take and never give back, may feel satisfying in the moment, but they damage trust and clarity. Avoid silence and hope. Waiting indefinitely without follow-up sends the message that nothing needs to change. Avoid shaming. Shame shuts down conversation. Stick to facts and feelings. Avoid using others to send the message. Never ask another child or relative to speak on your behalf. It complicates relationships and creates alliances that divide the family. When the answer is still no, Sometimes, even after your best effort, the other person won't repay. They'll deny, avoid, or dismiss. If this happens, the hardest truth must be faced. You may not get the money back, but you still have a choice: how to respond, how to protect yourself going forward, and how to adjust your generosity with new boundaries. This doesn't make you bitter, it makes you wise. You might say, I understand you can't return the money. I accept that. But I've learned from this, and I won't be lending again without clear agreement and follow through. Or even, I've decided to let this go financially, but emotionally, I need some space to rebuild my trust. Letting go isn't weakness. It's closure. Jung believed that when we face reality without illusion, we reclaim our inner power. Avoidance is not peace. It's a delay. Real peace comes from naming what is true, acting with dignity, and releasing what no longer serves. What this says about you: you are someone who gave with a full heart. You were generous, not careless. You asked with respect. And now, you choose to live with clarity. That is not harshness. That is wholeness. You still love. But now you also lead by example. Let your voice be heard. Let your value be seen. And let your peace no longer depend on someone else's memory of a promise. There's a moment, often quiet and lonely, when you realize the money isn't coming back. The promise, I'll pay you later, has faded. The reminders have been ignored. The relationship has changed, and not for the better. And worse than the financial loss is what settles in its place: disappointment, sadness, a question that repeats silently in your heart: how could someone I love treat me this way? It's not just about the debt anymore. It's about what the silence says: that your help wasn't valued, that your needs didn't matter, that your love was received but not respected. This is where many women feel trapped. You want to stay connected. You don't want to carry bitterness. But pretending nothing happened doesn't bring peace. It just buries the pain. So what do you do when the debt becomes a wound and no one seems interested in healing it? Carl Jung wrote that we don't become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. That means naming what hurts, facing what's real, and choosing to live from clarity, not illusion. What you can do: acknowledge the loss, all of it. You lost money, but you also lost a sense of trust, a version of the relationship, maybe even a part of how you saw yourself, as someone they respected, someone they listened to. It's okay to grieve that. Write about it. Say it out loud. I feel hurt because I wasn't considered. I feel unseen, unvalued. This was more than money for me. It was trust. Decide what closure looks like for you. There are two paths here, and only you can choose. Let go of the debt financially and redefine the relationship with new boundaries. Or continue holding the expectation of return, but limit emotional investment. Letting go does not mean forgetting. It means choosing peace over pursuit. You might say, I'm choosing not to pursue this further, but I've learned from it. From now on, I'll only support people when there's clarity and reciprocity. Protect your future, emotionally and financially. Don't lend again to someone who broke your trust unless they show real change. Set new personal rules. I only lend money with a written agreement. I no longer mix love and loans. My help will come in other ways. Take your power back in the relationship. If the person who owes you money avoids the topic and continues acting entitled, shift how you show up. You can be kind without being available. You can be respectful without giving more. You might need to say, there's a part of me that closed after what happened. I'm still here but different. I'm not holding anger, but I'm also not forgetting. I've changed. What to avoid? Don't wait for apologies that may never come. Your healing does not need their confession. Some people will never admit they were wrong, not because they don't know it, but because they don't want to face themselves. Don't punish with silence or coldness. Protecting yourself is not the same as building a wall. You can withdraw with dignity, not resentment. Don't allow shame to silence you. You are not foolish for having trusted. You are generous. You acted in good faith. That's not weakness. It's strength with an open heart. Don't continue relationships that are emotionally harmful. Even family ties need limits. If the other person only takes and dismisses your feelings, it is not your duty to remain available at any cost. If you choose to forgive, forgiveness is not forgetting. It's choosing not to carry the poison of resentment. It's saying, I choose peace over pain. I accept that this will never be made right, but I will not let it define me. Forgiveness can be quiet, private, internal. You don't need to tell the person you've forgiven them, especially if they've never acknowledged the harm. Carl Jung believed that wholeness comes not from being untouched by pain, but from learning how to carry it without being consumed. You can carry this experience as part of your story, not your identity. A new inner rule. You may choose from now on to live by a new principle. I will help when I can, but I will never abandon myself in the process. That rule doesn't close your heart. It protects it. It allows you to keep loving, but wisely, consciously, with awareness. What this says about you. You gave, you trusted, you cared, and now you're reclaiming your voice. You're choosing how to move forward. That is not weakness, it is maturity. Let this be the chapter where you learn not just how to help, but how to stop helping when it no longer serves you. Where you learn that peace is not just given, it's built, choice by choice, boundary by boundary. And if someone never says thank you, then let you be the one who says thank you to yourself. For giving, for surviving the silence, and for choosing your own healing. You haven't stopped being generous. You haven't become cold. You haven't turned your back on family. What's changed is how and why you give. After everything you've experienced, you've come to see that true generosity doesn't come from saying yes to everyone. It comes from saying yes with clarity, with boundaries, with love that includes yourself. Because love that costs your peace isn't love, it's sacrifice. And sacrifice, when expected and unreciprocated, becomes something else entirely, resentment. So this final chapter isn't about closing your heart. It's about opening your eyes. About walking into your next season of life with dignity, wisdom, and a different kind of strength. The strength to say, I'll help if I can, but I no longer abandon myself to do it. This is where generosity becomes sustainable, real, respected. Carl Jung believed that the second half of life is not about expansion but integration, making peace with what we've lived and becoming whole from within. And part of that wholeness is learning to give without guilt, to care without depletion. What generosity looks like now. You give with conditions, not apologies. You might say, I'm happy to help. Let's put this agreement in writing so we both feel comfortable. I'll cover this for now, but I'll need a plan for when and how you can return it. This isn't being hard. It's being honest. You know what kind of help you are and aren't available for. You've learned to ask, can I do this without stress or regret? Am I helping because I choose to, or because I feel I have no choice? You don't lend out of fear, guilt, or habit. You pause. You reflect. You protect your energy before your money. You set your own rules about money and support. No loans above what I can afford to lose. No help without a clear agreement. No mixing support with silence. You help in other ways, not just financially. Sometimes your gift is time, presence, listening, advice, a meal, a phone call. Those are just as valuable and often more lasting. What to say when asked for help. Instead of saying yes out of habit, use thoughtful phrases like, let me think about it and get back to you. I'm open to helping, but I'd like to agree on the terms clearly. I'm helping differently now, not out of fear, but out of love and structure. If you need to say no, this time, I'm not in a position to help financially. I've made a personal decision to not lend money anymore. I trust you'll find another solution. I believe in your ability. What to avoid moving forward. Avoid giving when your body says no. Fatigue, tension, or discomfort are signals. Respect them. Avoid rescuing adults from their responsibilities. You're not being unkind. You're being clear about where your help ends and theirs begins. Avoid making exceptions, just this time out of fear. Each time you break your own rule, you weaken your boundary and your peace. Avoid confusing love with financial support. Love can be steady, nurturing, present, and not involve money at all. Creating a new inner standard. You might write a small list for yourself, a generosity with boundaries guide. Keep it in your drawer, your wallet, or your journal. Let it remind you. My help is a gift, not a requirement. My peace matters. I can say no with love. I am not the solution to every problem. I deserve respect in return. This is your new foundation. One built not on obligation but on wholeness. The legacy you leave. You may worry, will they think I stopped caring? But what if this new version of you is the greatest lesson you leave behind? You're teaching your children and grandchildren what it means to be a woman with heart and voice. You're showing them that love can include boundaries. That generosity can include wisdom. That saying no is sometimes the most loving thing you can do for them and for yourself. Jung wrote, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And now, after years of giving, serving, sacrificing, you are stepping into that privilege. You are becoming who you are with peace, with clarity, with strength that doesn't shout, but stands firm. Let this be the beginning of a new way to give. One where your generosity uplifts and never depletes. One where your love is not only felt by others, but by yourself, because you deserve the same care you've always offered so freely.